On a summer night in 1982, within the canyons of Indian Dunes, California, the film set for Twilight Zone the movie became a scene of a deadly tragedy.
And then it all turned into a real-life horror.
Actor Vic Morrow and 2 child actors were killed when they were struck by the chopper.
The disastrous event sent shockwaves throughout Hollywood. But what happened on that fateful night was just the beginning of an unprecedented story. For the first time in history, a film director, John Landis, along with key members of the production, faced murder charges for the on-set deaths of 3 performers.
She was the only child I had. Now she has gone.
Their memories, ladies and gentlemen, are eloquent, and they cry out to you, John Landis, guilty.
It's very hard for me to watch. I'm sorry.
This video will peel back the layers of this devastating event, explore the harrowing details of the investigation, the conflicting theories of how this disaster actually happened, and take a deep dive into the landmark trial that changed Hollywood forever.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, John Landis.
For a generation, The Twilight Zone was more than just a television show. It was a cultural phenomenon. From 1959 to 1964, Rod Serling's groundbreaking anthology series captivated audiences with its thought-provoking morality tales and unforgettable twists.
That's not fair. That's not fair at all.
After Serling's death in 1975, plans for an anthology feature film of The Twilight Zone surfaced. The anthology format would allow multiple directors to put their unique stamp on distinct stories. Warner Brothers greenlit the project, envisioning a star-studded collaboration of directorial talent. Among the chosen few to bring this vision to life was John Landis.
The genre of monster films and horror films has been consistent throughout the history of the business. Why are they so popular? I guess because they're really entertaining.
By the early 1980s, Landis was a rising star in Hollywood, having directed Animal House, The Blues Brothers, and An American Werewolf in London. To star in the John Landis segment, the filmmaker secured Vic Morrow. He was a seasoned professional with a presence in both film and television. In John Landis's Twilight Zone segment, titled Time Out, Vic Morrow was cast as Bill Connor, a bigoted and embittered man who finds himself inexplicably transported through time and space, put into harrowing situations as the very people he holds with contempt. The segment's climax was to transport Connor into the Vietnam War, where he rescues 2 Vietnamese children from an approaching American helicopter firing upon their village. On the night of July 23, 1982, in the early hours of the morning, this pivotal scene was being filmed at Indian Dunes Park in Valencia, California. It was conceived as a spectacular and chaotic sequence, involving a helicopter flying over the village with intense explosions from the ground. Vic Morrow was carrying the 2 young performers, Micah Lee, age 7, and Renee Chen, age 6, across a shallow river as the helicopter hovered above them. But what was meant to be a controlled special effects sequence quickly devolved into an unimaginable catastrophe. The helicopter lost control. It descended rapidly, striking Morrow and the 2 children with its landing skids and main rotor blades.
There were 6 persons in the helicopter when it crashed. Only 4 persons needed treatment. All were later released.
While those in the helicopter survived the crash, the 3 performers were killed instantly.
Actor Vic Morrow and 2 small children were killed when the chopper came down as they were shooting a war scene.
In the immediate aftermath of the horrific accident, a wave of shock and disbelief rippled through the cast and crew, including the man flying the helicopter, experienced pilot Dorsey Wingo.
I looked out and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And the truth began to unfold and people told me what had happened. And I couldn't imagine anything that gruesome.
But what caused the helicopter to crash? The National Transportation Safety Board launched an investigation into the incident.
Federal investigators were told that the helicopter, a Bell 205 military model, had begun its mock bombing run about 35 feet above the water. At the same time, gasoline charges were being set off by the special effects men to simulate bombs being dropped.
Investigators quickly discovered the helicopter's tail rotor was damaged after explosions were detonated as part of the fatal scene.
The damage was confined to the tail rotor assembly and to the tail rotor blade.
But investigators did not provide a definitive cause for the damage to the tail rotor. With the investigation just getting started, some of the crew, including cameraman Roger Smith, who was on board the helicopter during the crash, spoke about his concerns over the safety procedures on the set.
90% of the time, we have no safeties. Nothing is provided. If you can't round it up from a stuntman or a prop man, you just have to figure it out for yourself.
Friends, family, and the general public grieved for the loss of Michael Lee, Renee Chen, and Vic Morrow.
I remember him probably as one of the finest professionals with whom I've ever worked.
The grief was immense, but it was quickly intertwined with a growing demand for accountability and a thorough explanation of what led to this profound loss of life. Some in Hollywood were commenting that tragedy is an unfortunate part of the profession.
There's always been injuries, deaths, and that's the name of the game.
They're very careful in pictures. When things like these, like this happens, it's a freak. It makes you wonder.
But there were also many others stunned by these specific deaths, prompting discussions about safety standards in filmmaking.
Remember that as stunt people or actors, you always have the right to say no, and don't be afraid to say no.
A number of questions emerged regarding child labor laws and the permits required for children working on a film set, particularly in potentially hazardous environments and during nighttime hours. It was discovered the two children were working on the film without permits, violating California child labor laws. The revelation led to harsh words from the state's labor commissioner.
Our office would never have approved children 6 and 7 years of age to be in that area, pure and simple.
The tragic loss of 3 lives, particularly 2 young children working illegally, elevated the potential for criminal negligence charges. Within months, official action began.
This terror is a direct result of neglect on the part of those parties for the protection of children.
In October of 1982, fines were levied against multiple companies involved in the production, including John Landis.
5 companies involved in the filming of the Twilight Zone have been fined a total of $62,000 for what a California safety board termed willful and serious safety violations in the helicopter crash that claimed 3 lives.
I'm trying to make clear what the penalties are for abusing children on the job in the industry. There wasn't one aspect of protection for children.
But that wasn't the end. Media reports confirmed that the families of Vic Morrow and the 2 children also filed lawsuits.
Vic Morrow's daughters, Carrie Ann Morrow and Jennifer Jason Lee, have filed suit to set an example for producers who disregard safety. The parents of one of the slain children, Renee Chen, also filed suit for $200 million.
After nearly a year of investigations into the tragic event, the media was still looking for answers to key questions, trying to understand what actually happened.
What orders did director John Landis give regarding the helicopter flight path and the explosive charges that brought the craft down? How did Landis give those orders? To whom did he give them? What did they mean? And who carried them out?
There were some questions getting answered about how the explosions in the scene affected the helicopter. The mortar explosions started occurring on the ground on cue, but after the 4th explosion, a fireball engulfed the helicopter, rising over 100 feet.
In its fatal pass, the helicopter was lower than during a rehearsal a few hours earlier. It is so hot, at least 800 degrees, say experts, that it peels a piece of skin off the tail rotor.
The National Transportation Safety Board investigators explained debris from the explosions caused foreign object damage to the helicopter's tail rotor. They also mentioned the issue of heat and that the tail rotor separated from the helicopter's fuselage.
Investigators displayed parts of the battered rotor, which they used to reconstruct the accident. They said the special effects man who detonated the final charge was watching Morrow and did not see the helicopter.
With its tail rotor gone, the helicopter became an uncontrollable mass of metal. But investigators did not say that debris from the explosions was the definite cause of the tail rotor separating. Additional questions were raised as to whether the helicopter was too close to the explosions, and if it was too close, who ordered the helicopter into a lower position.
The chopper pilot claims he rehearsed the shot farther away from where the explosion had been planned, and no one seems to know where the order came from to lower the chopper to about 25 feet.
Statements were beginning to be made public that it was John Landis who ordered the helicopter into the position. The media reported what an assistant cameraman from the film recalled from that night.
Randy Robinson says he heard Landis order the pilot to fly, and I'm quoting him now, lower, 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 just before the crash.
After the release of the National Transportation Safety Board's report, the blame was being put on both director John Landis and helicopter pilot Dorsey Wingo.
The board found director John Landis and the helicopter pilot both share responsibility for the crash. The director shouldn't have drawn the aircraft so close to the explosives. The pilot shouldn't have done it.
But the attorney representing John Landis was calling out the process for incompetence, and that his client was definitely not to blame.
This report is designed to cover up the National Transportation Safety Board's incompetence in saying that debris hit the tail rotor of the helicopter.
State Prosecutor Gary Kesselman made statements supporting the Safety Board's report.
The National Transportation Safety Board is saying that that helicopter should never have been as close as it was to a special effect explosive which had both debris and heat contained in it.
The question of criminal liability was also being looked into by the local district attorney's office.
I will be anticipating receiving reports about mid-month from Los Angeles Sheriff's Department Homicide Division, who is also investigating the matter.
For nearly a year following the accident, the investigation continued.
Local, state, and federal authorities still don't have a clear understanding of why veteran actor Vic Morrow and two small children died in an on-set helicopter crash.
In mid-1983, a Los Angeles County grand jury heard extensive testimony, including from John Landis, who gave a brief statement to the media before facing questions under oath.
I am here voluntarily to help in any way I can. That's it.
Landis's lawyer added to the short statement, denying it was Landis giving orders to the helicopter to go lower.
That's absolutely false. And the proof is that there were 5 cameras going and sound. So there's physical evidence as to who said what.
But on June 15, 1983, the grand jury handed down involuntary manslaughter indictments against John Landis, associate producer George Folsey Jr., unit production manager Dan Allingham, special effects coordinator Paul Stewart, and helicopter pilot Dorsey Wingo.
Landis, of course, is charged in all counts. We're alleging that he's responsible not only for bringing the children onto the set, but also that because of his direction, we're alleging that the stunts were conducted in a reckless manner.
Landis and the 4 other Twilight Zone production personnel pleaded not guilty to all charges.
It's had a profound impact on our lives, and I know in my heart that we did not cause this accident.
This marked a historic moment. It was the first time a film director faced criminal charges for deaths occurring on a movie set, setting the stage for a landmark trial that would captivate the nation and fundamentally challenge the standards of safety and accountability in the film industry. Meanwhile, approximately 1 year after the accident, Twilight Zone the movie was released in theaters. The scene in which Vic Morrow and the 2 children died was cut from the film, but audiences still found the movie difficult to watch.
Well, I felt strange watching him, but I thought his performance was excellent, and I think it points up what a loss he was.
And I was very sorry that there was no dedication or any mention made about Vic Morrow.
Like watching James Dean and Giant after his death, I mean, I simply couldn't erase it from my mind.
Following the grand jury indictments for involuntary manslaughter, the legal battle shifted to the pre-trial phase in which John Landis continued to state his innocence.
Not guilty.
This lengthy hearing, which stretched into early 1984, was essentially a mini-trial designed to determine if there was enough evidence to proceed with a full trial. Prosecutors presented their case, arguing the defendant's negligence and disregard for safety, particularly regarding child labor laws and the coordination of the helicopter with explosives, led to the deaths. The film's second assistant director testified that John Landis insisted on using children for the scene instead of dummies or doubles.
That John wanted a shot that would include everything, that there'd be multi-camera on the shot, and that the only way the shot would work would be with children.
One of the fire safety officers on set, Jack Tice, testified that he could have shut the filming down if he had learned about the 2 children working without a permit.
As a representative of the Department of Labor Standards Enforcement, I would have not permitted the children to work.
The issue of who ordered the helicopter lower was also being pushed by the prosecutors as a key point. as witnesses continued pointing the finger at director John Landis.
He said, lower, 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 fire, fire.
Fire, fire. Did those words have any meaning as you understood them?
That was the cue for the special effects, for the explosions.
Some of the more emotional testimony came from the parents of Renee Chen and Micah Lee, stating they were unaware of several details related to the filming of the scene.
But I didn't know it happened, like things happened like that.
Okay.
Even pay me the whole money, I will never let my children be in that kind of filming.
After the first blast, I became so horrified. I was so horrified. I was screaming. And with second blast, I fell down on the ground. It's not, something made up, but it's real danger.
Did he tell you anything about explosives, if you remember?
No.
Was anything mentioned to you, if you remember, about a helicopter?
No.
But Dr. Harold Schumann, who helped arrange the hiring of the two children, testified he did provide details as to what the scene would involve.
I told him they would not have permits, that they would be working at night, and that there would be explosives on the set, but not close to the children, and that I was told that there would be no danger.
Geologist Roger David also testified that he overheard George Folsey Jr. talking to the parents of the children before the scene in question was filmed.
Mr. Folsey explained to them that Vic Morrow would be involved in that scene, that he would be carrying the children, and that there would be a helicopter, and that there would be explosives.
Defense attorney Harlan Braun also stated the scene did not pose
any special danger to children because Vic Morrow was killed on the same spot.
If anyone had ever thought that such a horrendous thing could happen, obviously we would have stopped.
Defense attorneys also countered the prosecution's central argument about the illegal use of child actors, saying that had nothing to do with the accident itself.
People associated with the production did conceal the fact that these children were unlicensed. The issue is whether or not John Landis intentionally and deliberately endangered these children. And the answer to that is no.
The defense maintained the crash was an unforeseeable accident, stressing mechanical failure of the helicopter. The on-set special effects technicians also testified that they did not see the scene as dangerous.
Did you think it was dangerous?
No, sir.
Would Paul Stewart be able to convince you to set off something that was going to endanger the safety and limbs of those around you and the crew and the spectators and the cast? No, sir.
The defense also stood by their point it was not flying debris that caused the tail rotor to fail.
If, in fact, he does know the true cause of the helicopter crash, then it would seem to me that Mr. Braun is taking an absolutely outrageous position. And having not gone forward to the district attorney's office with this alleged information.
This is a terrible, terrible accident that obviously will cause pain and anguish to all of us for the rest of our lives.
In April 1984, Judge Brian Crahan delivered his pivotal ruling. He ordered John Landis, special effects coordinator Paul Stewart, and helicopter pilot Dorsey Wingo to stand trial on involuntary manslaughter charges for all three deaths.
This court believes that a crime, to wit, involuntary manslaughter, was in fact committed by certain principals on the set in the filming of the final segment, The Twilight Zone, the movie.
However, in a blow to the prosecution, he dismissed the involuntary manslaughter charges against associate producer George Folsey Jr. and unit production manager Dan Allingham.
I am greatly relieved for my friends George Folsey and Dan Allingham. I'm also extremely disheartened to learn that at this stage of the judicial process, being innocent is apparently not enough.
Landis appealed the decision that he stand trial for involuntary manslaughter. But in November 1984, Judge Gordon Ringer of the Los Angeles Superior Court kept the murder charges against Landis, Stewart, and Wingo in place. And as an additional major reversal, he reinstated the involuntary manslaughter charges against Folsey and Allingham. Judge Ringer stated that the entire case, involving all 5 defendants and all charges, should be determined by a trial jury.
The defendants and all 5 of them should stand their trial. This isn't Nickelodeon time anymore, and I'm not expressing it personally.
We're pleased by the judge's decision, and we simply have to wait and see what happens.
What do you think was the deciding factor?
The evidence.
We're disappointed, and we'll go on it for a writ, and if not, we'll try the case.
The stage was now set for an unprecedented and highly publicized criminal trial. one that would shape the future of Hollywood productions. The landmark criminal trial began in September 1986 in Los Angeles Superior Court.
4 years later, the trial is just beginning. At issue, who's responsible for 3 deaths on the Twilight Zone movie set?
John Landis is the first Hollywood director to face criminal charges in connection with the filming of a movie.
The formidable voice of the prosecution was Deputy District Attorney Leah D'Agostino. Known for her aggressive and theatrical courtroom style, she was nicknamed the Dragon Lady.
It's a name she's proud of.
I take no offense at it at all because it means that I'm tough and I won't give in to these criminals.
D'Agostino was determined to prove that the defendant's reckless disregard for safety constituted criminal negligence. She was often described as passionate and unwavering in her pursuit of justice for the victims.
You have to use your own common sense. You cannot mix explosions, a helicopter, and human beings, let alone children, and not realize that there's a potential for danger.
The defense was equally prominent, featuring some of the era's most respected legal minds. John Landis added attorney James F. Neal to his legal team.
Not one of these gentlemen intended to hurt anyone. Not one of these gentlemen thought the scene, as planned and rehearsed, was dangerous.
At the trial's outset, D'Agostino pushed her central argument that the defendants, particularly Landis, created an inherently dangerous environment through their pursuit of realism, with a disregard for established safety protocols and child labor laws.
Mr. Landis's quest for realism exceeded all bounds of safety, and he got his effect. But at what cost?
She attempted to show this during her opening remarks by reading from the film's script.
The buildings blow up in flames as the helicopter systematically destroys the village in its search for Bill. These were not deaths from which someone could get up and wipe the bloody-looking ketchup off their face and say, I'm alive. They were very, very real deaths. They were not an illusion, ladies and gentlemen.
Witnesses testified to Landis's alleged dismissive attitude and yelling and screaming on set, suggesting he was overly dictatorial and willing to push things too far, including with the hiring of the child performers.
He was a little gruff, I believe, because he wouldn't be involved in this, and said, the hell with you guys, we don't need you, we'll get them off the streets ourselves.
Were you told anything about not referring to them as children?
Yes.
What were you told in that regard?
I was told not to refer to them as children.
Second Assistant Director Anderson House recounted comments he heard after filming a scene featuring some explosives.
After the scene, I heard John Landis say, if you think that was big, wait till you see the next one.
A particularly controversial point from the trial was the alleged command from Landis to the helicopter pilot Dorsey Wingo to fly lower, lower. First Assistant Director Ellie Cohen testified about his passing on this instruction.
I'm 95% sure that I communicated to the helicopter pilot, lower, lower.
Who would have told you to do that?
The director.
But during cross-examination, the defense questioned the witness about whether others on the crew, such as the Second Assistant Director, had concerns over safety.
At any time, did Mr. Anderson House ever come to you and express that he thought this scene was dangerous?
No.
Production Secretary Donna Schumann testified that she heard associate producer George Folsey consider what might happen if the illegal hiring of children was discovered, in addition to the use of explosives.
He said, a slap on the wrist and a little fine, unless they find out about explosives, and then they'll put my butt in jail.
But in an unexpected turn, Schumann also stated the previous prosecutor on the case, Gary Kesselman, purposely withheld her testimony from the defense team before the trial, which would violate legal and ethical rules for prosecutors.
He said, it's okay to do that. Everybody understands that. As long as you folks get it within a certain time frame, which would be the trial.
Kesselman took the stand and denied the allegation, leading prosecutor D'Agostino to also take the stand to support the testimony of her witness.
She's accusing her own deputy of lying just because she can't conceive of the fact that one of her witnesses could be lying.
And I will go on record again as indicating I think Gary Kesselman did an absolutely outstanding job on this particular case.
Based on these actions by the prosecution, the defense attempted to have the case dismissed, but the judge ordered the trial to continue. The defense continued with their harsh words for the deputy DA.
I think she's dishonest and a sick woman, and she's totally obsessed with her own persona and turning this case into a media event for her.
She puts her whole body and soul into it, and that's my type of prosecutor.
I mean, we have 3 dead human beings, 2 of whom are tiny children. I mean, how could you not be committed?
D'Agostino continued pushing the prosecution's case by focusing on the illegal hiring of the 2 child actors, Micah Lee and Renee Chen, for the night shoot. She argued that these violations were not merely technicalities, but indicative of a broader pattern of negligence that placed the children in harm's way. The parents of Micah Lee and Renee Chen once again appeared to testify, as they did during the pre-trial, underscoring the human cost of the tragedy.
I fell on the ground.
Why did you fall down to the ground?
Because I was so horrified.
Did he tell you that your son Micah was going to be filmed with explosions going on around him?
No.
Did he tell you that your son Micah was going to be filmed with a helicopter about 20 feet over him?
No.
But the defense team made claims the parents did know about the details for the helicopter scene.
They will deny that they knew that there were going to be a helicopter and special effects in a scene which they had seen a similar scene 5 hours before. We just cannot explain that because Mr. Folsey, in fact, told them all of that.
That's simply an outrageous misstatement, and counsel knows it is. The parents are going to come in here and testify truthfully. They have absolutely no reason to lie.
I just think she wants very badly to win because it's a big case for her. And she'll do or say anything she has to win the case.
One of the key witnesses the prosecutors called was special effects technician James Chamomile, the man in charge of detonating the explosives for the scene in question. Chamomile was also given immunity from the prosecution in exchange for his testimony, in which he mentioned John Landis wanting the explosion of the hut.
What did you hear Mr. Landis say?
That he would like to see the shack go up.
And also mentioned receiving specific instructions from defendant Paul Stewart.
Did you get instructions by anyone, sir, to place a mortar under any particular structure?
From Mr. Stewart.
Chamomile's testimony did provide some help for the prosecution's case in questioning the safety of the helicopter being as close as it was to the explosives. But after questioning from defense attorneys, the testimony from Chamomile seemed to be more of a help to the defendants. News reports explained how Chamomile testified he did not follow instructions on when to detonate the mortars.
James Chamomile testified he was told by one of the defendants, Special Effects Coordinator Paul Stewart, not to set off the explosives while a helicopter was directly above or near the mortars.
Chamomile explained he was wearing a heat shield while the scene was filmed, limiting his field of view, and that his attention was not on the helicopter.
Was there any reason you were not looking at the helicopter?
Because my attention was focused on the children and Vic.
And he should have looked, and he didn't look. And the prosecution gave him immunity. I don't think he should have been prosecuted, but he obviously is the one that caused the accident and not any of the other defendants.
They have to put the blame on somebody, and it's always been convenient to put it on Mr. Chamomile.
We devastated the prosecution's case, and I can't believe that this crazy woman is still hanging in there.
I must be doing something right to elicit all this incredible hostility on his part. I think it's wonderful. I hope he continues to do so.
When it came time for the defense to present their case, they maintained that the accident was unforeseen and unforeseeable, and therefore, their clients could not be held criminally liable. In his opening remarks, defense attorney James Neal highlighted that John Landis and the production did take a number of safety measures for the scene in question.
The prosecutor says there was no rehearsal or inadequate rehearsal. The proof will show this is wrong. The prosecutor says John Landis wanted realism at any cost. The proof will show this is wrong.
In one of the more important moves in the entire case, John Landis himself took the stand, a rare move for a defendant in a high-profile criminal case. Landis admitted the error in hiring child actors for the late-night scene.
We decided to break the law. We decided wrongly to violate the labor code.
But he also testified that the parents of Micah Lee and Renee Chen were aware of the details for the scene in question.
You told these parents about the helicopter in the scene?
Yes.
Did you tell them about the explosions in the same scene?
Yes.
At least some of the parents said they weren't told about the helicopter and the special effects. We have to respond to that.
The whole world is lying, according to John Landis, except John Landis. I find that somewhat incredible.
Continuing on the stand, Landis described his perspective on the set, standing approximately 10 feet in front of where the helicopter crashed.
The helicopter really just startled me. I was like, what? And then, yes, I became aware. I was, oh my God, where's Vic and Mika and Renee? And I ran to them, yes.
Another key reason for putting Landis on the stand was he could directly state that no one ever mentioned to him this scene would be dangerous.
Did anybody ever suggest to you that those scenes, as planned, were dangerous?
Never.
Landis also addressed the testimony from witnesses called by the prosecution, that he yelled for the helicopter to go lower.
Did you say to the helicopter, lower, lower?
I don't recall saying that. I don't know if I said it or not, but I have no recollection of saying it.
But Prosecutor DiAgostino was not convinced by the testimony from Landis. Once DiAgostino had the opportunity to question Landis, she attempted to dismantle his credibility and portray him as a witness whose testimony could not be trusted.
Does it come easily to you, Mr. Landis?
Crying?
Yes.
No.
Doesn't come easily to you.
No.
Was it also planned that he would drop Renee, or almost drop Renee, or lose his hold on his grip on Renee? Was that also planned?
We did not discuss dropping Renee, and I don't believe he did.
You wanted to wipe this village off the face of the earth, right?
No.
You never made that comment in the office.
I don't recall that.
Well, you have seen the footage on how many occasions, sir?
As often as this jury and twice before that.
You only saw it twice before this jury saw it?
It's very hard for me to watch. I'm sorry.
Your Honor, would you like some Kleenex, sir?
No, thank you.
It's a perfectly orchestrated, choreographed script. Just the right amount of hesitancy, just the right amount of looking down, the right amount of looking at the jury, the right amount of smiling when a smile was necessary.
I thought he did everything in the world not to show emotion.
After Landis, the defense called a number of witnesses testifying that the scene was safe, including the stunt coordinator that worked with Vic Morrow on the film.
Did you speak up and say at the 220 scene, Mr. Morrow shouldn't do that scene?
No, I didn't.
And is that because you didn't think it was dangerous for Mr. Morrow to do that scene?
I didn't think it was a bit dangerous.
But one witness, special effects technician Jerry Williams, testified that defendant Paul Stewart instructed him to place a mortar under a hut with a bamboo floor in the mock Vietnamese village, a point the prosecutor attempted to use to her advantage.
Were you told to place that mortar under that structure, sir?
Yes,
And who told you to place that mortar there?
Mr. Stewart.
The prosecution continued to heavily rely on the theory that debris from this mortar explosion, including parts of the structure itself, struck the helicopter's tail rotor, causing it to crash. But Williams also said the structure was still on the ground after the explosions.
What, if anything, was left of that structure, sir?
The structure itself and the bamboo flooring.
That's absolutely a lie. There is no way that floor was intact because when the investigators arrived at the scene, there was no floor there. We have pictures to show there was no floor.
Mr. Williams told them in August of 82, September of 82, in the grand jury in 83, and the preliminary hearing in 1984 that the floor was there, and they simply will not believe it because it doesn't fit with their theory, which is a phony theory.
So if the theory of the prosecution was a phony one, what really happened? The defense argued the primary cause of the helicopter crash was not merely debris impact, but rather a massive, unexpected fireball that ignited in the air very close to the helicopter, instead of on the ground as intended. Their argument centered on the idea of thermal delamination of the helicopter's tail rotor blade. They contended the extreme heat from this airborne fireball caused the composite materials of the tail rotor blade to weaken and delaminate, or separate, into layers. Central to the defense, they argued that this airborne fireball and its resulting thermal delamination effect were unforeseeable and unprecedented phenomena in special effects and aviation.
Nowhere in the recorded history of helicopters has there ever been a report of a tail rotor blade delaminating from heat. It happened here in the Twilight Zone.
If it was unprecedented, then the defendants could not be held criminally negligent for failing to predict or prevent it. The defense also attempted to shift the discussion to special effects technician James Chamomile, who had been granted immunity in exchange for his testimony, but not going so far as to blame him.
I don't think Mr. Chamomile is a criminal. We're not trying to blame him. We're trying to tell you what the proof shows happened in this case.
Ultimately, the defense was aiming to show a number of factors led to this intense heat that caused the helicopter to crash. One cause was James Chamomile being unaware of the helicopter's lower position, as he was focused on Vic Morrow and the two children crossing the water.
How could anyone foresee that a man holding the highest powder card issued by the state of California, the #1 expert in his field, would prematurely set off for special effects with the helicopter right there?
Next, special effects technician Jerry Williams explained what he heard on set.
I heard several explosions go off in rapid order, as though either the person on the board had slipped or he had raked the board.
He stated Chamomile might have activated the explosions in rapid order, thus creating a more intense and widespread fireball than intended.
Breaking the board means that you have started and then just come through rapidly.
And a third major factor was the fifth mortar explosion did not explode on the ground, as was meant to occur. Instead, that fifth explosion happened in the air.
And caught the #4 mortar fireball to combine in a fireball right around the tail of the helicopter.
But there was still more to the case raised by the defense. They also pointed out that safety was important to the men on trial, and those hired as safety officers, special effects technicians, and helicopter pilots were all highly regarded, highly ranked individuals.
Those fire safety officers testified that they knew there would be special effects explosives, and they knew that the fireballs would go at least 100 feet in the air.
Yet another point the defense attempted to counter was the idea that the helicopter being positioned lower was a safety hazard.
This idea that a lowering of 6 feet from the 11:30 scene is somehow dangerous, I say it is a phony issue.
But was all of this enough for the defense to convince the jury that those on trial were in fact innocent? After 9 months of grueling testimony and an intense legal battle, the fate of John Landis and the 4 co-defendants rested in the hands of the jury. On May 29, 1987, the verdict was finally read.
Title of court and cause. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, John Landis, not guilty of involuntary manslaughter, as charged in count 1 of the amended information.
The jury found all 5 defendants not guilty on all counts of involuntary manslaughter.
We believe this was all an unforeseeable accident. You don't prosecute people for unforeseeable accidents.
The defense's argument that the accident was an unforeseeable tragedy rather than a result of criminal negligence had prevailed. The verdict was met with a mix of relief by the defense and outrage by the prosecution.
An accident happened on the set of one of my films that killed 3 people. None of this changes that. It's a terrible moment in my life, in our lives, in many people's lives.
We know we didn't do anything wrong. We'll never recover from the fact that we were making a movie and 3 people got killed.
I'm shocked. I'm appalled. I'm disappointed because I believe that the conduct clearly was, as I said before, I don't want to sound repetitious, was about as reckless as it can get.
While the criminal trial concluded without convictions, the civil lawsuits brought by the families of Vic Morrow, Michael Lee, and Renee Chen eventually resulted in multi-million-dollar settlements from Warner Brothers and other involved parties. For the families, the money could never replace their loved ones, but it was a form of accountability. Regardless of the trial's outcome, the Twilight Zone tragedy irrevocably altered Hollywood. It served as a brutal, unforgettable wake-up call for an industry often criticized for prioritizing spectacle over safety.
I think it'll make them a little more aware of safety, and I don't think that hurts anything.
After the tragedy, there did seem to be a greater call for showing the public what safety measures are taken on film sets.
The demonstration is evidence of a new awareness of the need for greater safety measures in film production. It's an awareness that has grown out of 3 deaths on the set of Twilight Zone.
The state of California really strengthens, made stricter those regulations dealing with children in movies.
I guess, unfortunately, every advance of this nature is made with martyrs. It is up to us, the living, not to dishonor their deaths.
But many in the film industry argued this one incident shouldn't have suggested poor standards were the norm.
I've always contended that we in the picture business, we're the best. According to OSHA's statistics, we're the safest business there is in the United States.
While no legal verdict could bring back the lives lost, the Twilight Zone case left an undeniable legacy, standing as a somber reminder of the ultimate price paid when the line between cinematic illusion and real-world danger becomes tragically blurred.